Hey, and good Monday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather News YouTube channel with the weather report, your no-nonsense weather. We don't hype you to death here, folks. There's enough of that out there in the YouTube universe. If you want straightforward weather reporting that's going to keep you informed, let you know when you need to be prepared for something, then this is the channel. So if you come into this after the live update in the morning, please help us out. If you can, hit that subscribe button, become part of this weather family. We do appreciate it, and welcome on board, by the way. All right, let's talk about what we got going on there yesterday. We're talking about our extremes. We had 100 degrees out there in Rio Grande Village down there in Texas, and 13 out there in Manila, M-A-N-I-L-A. I think it's Manila, Utah. 13 degrees out there. So anyway, those were our extremes. That we are going to be seeing some changes, folks. Finally, this warm pattern we've had. I mean, sound like a broken record here on these updates here, but I think we're finally seeing a decent pattern change that's going to be a little more active. Now, with that, I think we're going to see increased opportunities for severe weather. It's been kind of been a lot of days where I haven't had a severe weather to track on. I think that's going to be changing here as we go deeper into the month of October. A more active jet stream there. I got some interesting things out in the tropics we're going to talk about as well. You know, we still got about another 6 weeks or so of hurricane season to talk about. And we'll see if we get any real decent cold shots coming down or not. I know we got some decent snows out in the west for me to show you on this report. So anyway, let's go look at the surface map here for this morning. We got a cold front here in the middle of the country. This nor'easter, this big thing that's been spinning up here all weekend long, finally losing its punch, caused a lot of coastal erosion problems and some flooding up and down the eastern seaboard from the Carolinas, heading up into New Jersey. We got another storm system coming in here on the west coast. This thing's going to drop right down the west coast here and drop some pretty decent rains as well as some snows. Some pretty impressive rains here along the west coast of California. Definitely going to be helpful out there for some of their drought conditions they've had out west. Now we'll go ahead and talk about some of these lingering rains here across the Northeast. Starting to look a little bit better there across New York State, but seeing some of the decent rains up there north of New York City for this morning. There goes up there just south of Albany, so a little bit of some decent rains moving through there. But again, that low pressure system is starting to wind down. That's the good news there, and folks can clean up some of the mess caused by that thing over the weekend. Still dealing with the flash flooding here across, watches here across Arizona. We had flooding in Colorado, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico. We mentioned it last week. We knew it was going to be a pain. We had all this tropical moisture coming up from Priscilla and Raymond. It all came up in there, and it just was a real pain. And looks like things will finally begin to dry out. When I show you the excessive rain forecast here next 3 days, you'll see a big change there taking place as we're going to see things begin to prove out there as well. Got a little snows there. Got a couple of things out there west. Got some snow up here across Idaho and into Montana. And the higher Sierra Nevada here, that's going to be some impressive snow totals, I think, through there as we go through the next couple of days. I'll show you that here in just a second as well. All right, let's go start out quickly out in the tropics. We'll get out of here. We did get Lorenzo to form overnight. Top sustained winds on this is 45 miles per hour. Lorenzo is going to do something pretty interesting. We don't see it very often out in the tropics. This is the 7-day forecast right now. It keeps it as a tropical storm. It goes like this, but this thing may do a little loop-de-loop. It really might. It's going to go right on area of high pressure. I'm going to show you the ensemble here model here. The Sense ensemble model. I'll kind of show you that here in a second. But here's our storm out here. It got some pretty good, decent convection around here. Still a little bit of wind shear coming over this, but that's not looking bad. There's another wave that's going to come in behind this one. And with Lorenzo getting caught up there to the north like that, it may actually steer the tropical wave behind it to stay south, and that one may actually sneak into the Caribbean. We haven't had that most of this year, although most has been staying north of entering into the Caribbean or doing the big turn out to sea. The next tropical wave behind this one may not do that, so we'll see what happens with it. But let me show you the loop. Let me show you the loop here. Again, here goes Lorenzo going north. Look at the high pressure right here. Here's high pressure right there. And it's going to do a nice little loop-de-loop behind this one. And then we got another tropical wave coming right behind it. Look at this one. Boom. We got high pressure. It builds up to this one. Finally makes it into the Caribbean. If we get a named storm, that next one's going to be named Melissa. So that one we'll have to watch closely. It makes it into the Caribbean. If especially with a more progressive weather pattern across the country, could make the turn and bring it up into the Gulf. Now, with it being said, it's getting kind of late in the season. Whether we're going to get a major hurricane making landfall along the Gulf Coast, it gets a little difficult because wind shear predominantly, but still some pretty good warm Gulf waters out there. We'll see. We got a long way to watch that one, folks, but at least another 10 days. We'll see what happens as we get deeper into the season. Let's go ahead and break down where our severe weather alerts are for today. Let's go take a look at those. Well, hold on real quick. Before I do that, let's talk about the Pacific real quick. I do want to talk about that real quick. I get ahead of myself. I got one area of disturbed weather out there in the Pacific, 40% chance for development on that one, and that's really not looking all that impressive, but I did want to, don't forget the Pacific. But look, the good news is I don't see any big surges of moisture coming up this way. I wanted you folks in the Southwest to understand that, okay, the spigots have been cut off here for a little bit. We'll see what happens with this next system out there in the Pacific. So almost forgot about that. My apologies. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the weather-wise, looking at the severe weather here for today. We got some out here in the west. Predominantly, we're talking about Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Texas here for today on your day one outlook. Day two, this kind of sits in New Mexico. Again, some storms out here in the west, mostly general thunderstorm threat. That goes into your Tuesday. And then day three, this kind of shifts up into portions of South Dakota, coming back toward Wyoming, Nebraska, and northern Colorado, and over here across New Mexico. So we could talk about some heavy rains, some gusty winds at excess of 60 miles per hour, maybe some small hail in there. But that's what we're looking at here for the next 3 days, from Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And that's just the start, folks. The overall weather pattern is really changing. When I show you the model data, you're going to see what I'm talking about here. There'll be greater opportunities here for severe weather. You know, fall is sometimes referred to as that secondary severe weather season, and I think we're going to see that potential be there as we go. Definitely turning more active on the model data front. Now let's talk about the excessive rain front. I did say we were going to see improvements on that. Now today we still got some pockets here. Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, still looking at some yellow, so some slight risk there. Pretty heavy rains there coming down the west coast with that upper level low there. But notice when we go to day two, kind of shifts here. California, Los Angeles, looking at some decent heavy rains across that area. Of course, in those urban areas, you get the flooding. It could be a big problem down that way. So Los Angeles tomorrow, where my daughter lives out that way, they'll need to be careful and watch out for some heavy rain out there. Rest of the country, not looking bad here for your day two. And day three, we're just kind of looking predominantly there across southern Colorado and New Mexico. So settling things down a little bit there in the Southwest to give you all a chance to catch your collective breaths from all that heavy rain they've had here over the past week or so. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the models here. We're going to first take a look at the NAM 3 kilometer. We're going to look at the latest run on this. As what we're going to deal with here is we're saying goodbye to the system here on the West Coast, our East Coast here first. We're saying goodbye to this. This is going to kind of wash itself out. Look at this low coming down the West Coast here. Look at all the heavy snows there across the Sierra Nevada. This thing's going to swing into Nevada and into Idaho and move up to the north. So it's going to bring some nice snows here across the West Coast, going right down there and kind of swing inland here and keeping it active there. Southeast still staying high and dry. You guys across the Southeast, my neighbors down here, you're not going to get a weather system probably until the weekend. Right now, looking at Saturday, Sunday. That system going into this weekend, that will also have a severe weather potential with it, just because of how warm it is out ahead of that next system coming in. So as you can see, Southeast looking good for your Columbus Day going into Wednesday. Northeast is going to improve. South Central looking good, but the West Coast looking very active. Obviously, that upper low here kind of drifting on down to the south. All right, let's talk about your rainfall totals. Again, the Northeast, obviously, with what's left of that nor'easter, causing rains out there. Midwest dry, Southeast dry, South Central dry. Of course, we've got the rains here that's still plaguing Arizona, Colorado. Decent totals all the way up down the entire, that's something you don't see very often, where the entire west coast of California see some decent rains from Northern California all the way down into Southern California. You don't see that very often. Northwest not looking too bad, but definitely some rains out there across the Intermountain region here. All right, let's go ahead and look at your temperatures here. Got this looping through. Again, still looking at that above normal temperatures in the South Central states. We're peeling it back from the northern tier a little bit. Not as bad, not as warm, but still pretty warm out here. Look at the end of this run here. I'm going to let this go all the way to here to the end. And watch this. Still looking at, look at this. Tuesday, still looking at 70s here in Kansas. You got 50s and 40s up this way. This is what it's supposed to be. So watch here as we go into your Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon. Still, look at this. It's in the 70s in Nebraska. This is crazy. Not supposed to be that warm. All right. That's going to continue. So the weather pattern change here, I want to talk about this, is the fact that we're seeing a more progressive pattern here across the country. Finally saying goodbye to that ridge. Seeing things begin to move west to east. Start to see little storm systems starting to move on through. All right. So you see the West Coast storm here. It kind of swings on up and out, and then it swings on through, and then it swings on to the east. So this potential here, there's a little bit of a negative tilt here too. Here comes the jet stream. And again, this might be something to watch going into Sunday, Monday for some active severe weather. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I say those are the 3 days we need to watch because we do have that warm air down to the south, and we'll see that. But that moves off the east coast. We get a brief ridging there across the south going to Tuesday, and then there's another system coming behind it. But everything's starting to move now. Now don't see that blocking pattern taking place, little storm system. So notice just seeing a nice change here from what we were dealing with now. So we're starting to see the storm systems moving west to east, and every single one of these things, especially with as warm as the Gulf is with the moisture flow there, I still think above normal temperatures because of La Nina across the south, definitely will enhance the ability for more severe weather as we go into the fall season. We call it the secondary severe weather season for a reason, and I think this year especially, I think looks likely that's going to be in the cards, okay? So here's a 7-day loop here. Again, we're going to be bringing this storm system out here on the west coast here. I'll slow this down again. Look at these snows here across Colorado and into Nevada going into Tuesday. This is going to swing off toward the north and west here, or north and east, and kind of go up into Wyoming and into the plains there. You kind of see the decent rains there going into your Thursday up across this area here. And whoops, sorry about that. There we go. Right through there, have some snows in there, looking pretty decent. East Coast not looking bad. There's a bit of a backdoor front that may cool things down there. Look at this little cool shot here. It's a bit nippy there across areas of New England here going into Thursday. You notice a little cold shot coming down there. And then as we go into your weekend, this frontal system is going to finally move out in the middle of the country. So here we go. There we go. Looking on Saturday, so we've got some storms in here. You have to watch that. Maybe Saturday, maybe some severe weather with some of this. And this comes into the south going into Sunday. Some much needed rains there, and then this kind of clears on out. So I'm not talking about a major severe weather event, folks, nothing like that. Just knows we're going to get some thunderstorms, some heavy rains. And notice we also got another system coming in there on the west coast again. So again, a little more progressive pattern. Start seeing the storm systems line up behind each other. That's what we need to see, especially across the south because the drought conditions here have been really been plaguing us here for a while. So look how much of the country's got precipitation. That's not bad. West Coast especially, but we got, except for maybe Texas, parts of the southeast, we're starting to see a little more of the country starting to get in on the rain action. Great Lakes looking at some pretty decent rains up this way. West Coast from Washington State down into California looking pretty decent as well. So a lot of the country getting in on the rain action. And some of that will be snow, obviously, out here in the west. Got some decent snow totals up here. 15 inches across Colorado. That's probably a little underdone. I think it might be a little bit more than that. Get some decent here across southern portions of Idaho and in Wyoming. So starting to build this snowpack out here in the west. I get no complaints out of this, that's for sure. I'm sure the skiers will be looking forward to that. Now, as far as the temperature regime is concerned, again, this is on Wednesday. Look at these 70s here pushing into Nebraska and Iowa on Wednesday. So we're kind of cool here in the west. Not really, even though the pattern's getting a little more progressive, I'm not seeing a real big Arctic plunge or a big cold snap here, at least not on the shore. It'll be below normal in the west for sure, but obviously you see the blue there. So it'll be below normal there out in the west. So but look at us on Tuesday morning, 1 to 60. Think we got a cold front right there? Yeah, pretty good bet. Look at that. Got a big swing in the temperatures there. So this thing's going to push off to the east. But here comes that front. There it is right there on Sunday. Here it is. See, look how warm it is here in the Midwest and the southeast. So we get some cool air moving off toward the east, but not overly cold. Again, this is so it kind of moves on through by the time we get to Monday. This moves on through, and then we're warming right back up here in the middle of the country. So a little more progressive pattern going on, and just because of, and we're still rebounding back in the 80s here across Texas and into 90s here across South Texas. So because of these quick warm-ups in between, and we're not getting a true Arctic air mass, again, start paying attention a little more for the severe weather here for the rest of October. Now, here's some substantial changes on the climate outlook here I want to point out as we go and wrap this thing up. All right, very colder out in the west. We've been tracking that for a little while now. We knew this was coming. Very warm here in the east compared for middle October. This goes from the 18th to the 22nd. We're trimming this back. Not so much bright red on that map there. So we're bringing it back a little bit, a little more seasonable. And also with it backing off a little bit, we're also going to increase the precipitation chances, especially the southeast. This is a big change here. Last week when I was showing this on Friday, we were showing just dry. Boom, now we're getting wet. So now we're getting some wet conditions here showing up here across the east finally. So wet there. Finally get a chance to dry out across the southwest. They need a break, so that's some good news for the folks there. And then the 8th to the 14th, still looking wet across the southeast. So maybe we can start beating back some of this drought conditions there. We kind of expand the dry there across the southwest into the south central plains, and still a little bit active there across the northwest. So anyway, looks like we're in store for some changes here. We'll say as far as we kind of wrap things up here for your update. Lorenzo's going to do a little, not worried about Lorenzo, but I am, Melissa, we'll see. Again, I'm finally one going into the Caribbean. It always kind of depends on what the upper level winds are doing with that. If we do get that form, and does it kind of sneak into the Gulf or not? We got a long way to watch that one. Obviously, a little more progressive pattern. We got a couple severe weather events here next couple of days. I think the one going into Saturday, so might get to a slight risk here going into this upcoming weekend. But we're definitely going to see a little bit better progressive weather pattern here, a little more active for sure as we go into the second half of October. So some subtle changes, but necessary, that's for sure. Hey, Mick, good to see you out there this morning. Edith, thank you for joining us for this morning as well. I appreciate you guys checking us out. And we'll see you guys tomorrow in the next edition. I got stuck getting home. I was working at Fox 5 in Atlanta here last night, and I got stuck in Gwinnett County. I got stuck in the interstate for like 45 minutes. I didn't get home till like 1 in the morning, so I was very tired. I was like, man, it was an hour and a half drive. Normally it's 42 minutes, on a Sunday night. It's usually pretty quick, but not last night. All right, that's y'all's update. You guys take it easy. We'll talk.